Hello again to all my friends. I'm glad you came to play. I'm just kidding, you guys. Welcome back to the Elephant in the Room. Brandon here. I'm glad you guys came back to come and check out the channel. Yes, thanks. So there's a lot of different talk about the different protections of cops, about defunding the cops, about how just overall the cops just really aren't doing their jobs and they're really not protecting us. So we need to defund the police. We need to really check qualified immunity standards and how we address that. And so I really just wanted to go over what exactly qualified immunity is, how cops are protected under it and how they're not protected under it, and how we can essentially just use some of the laws to really protect ourselves against cops too. Just like how the government has the three different branches for the checks and balances system, we do have laws in place to really check government officials as well, because after all, they are put into place to really make laws and to make these rules and regulations to make the system safe, to make our daily life safe and to make things efficient. That's what they're there to do. And we didn't elect them, or we didn't put them in place, and we didn't give them these responsibilities and this power for them to take advantage of it. And so there were our forefathers, so be it, created these rules and laws, and they put them into place just so that way we will be protected, because at the end of the day, it's the people who have all the power, not them. All right, so but before I get into all that, I almost forgot, make sure you guys like, subscribe, share the content, just so that way we can really start all leveling up and we can all take advantage of all this really great content that we're producing, or that I'm producing. First off, starting with is qualified immunity. All right, so qualified immunity is a type of legal immunity. Qualified immunity balances two important interests: the need to hold public officials accountable when they exercise power irresponsibly, and the need to shield officials from harassment, distraction, and liability when they perform their duties reasonably. Anyways, so specifically, qualified immunity protects a government official from lawsuits alleging that the official violated a plaintiff's rights, only allowing suits where the officials violated a clearly established statutory or constitutional right. When determining whether or not a right was clearly established, courts consider whether a hypothetical reasonable official would have known that the defendant's conduct violated the plaintiff's rights. All right. So when you're looking at all of this stuff right here, it kind of gives, there's a lot of leeway with the English language in general. You say one word and it means like 5, 6, 29 different things. All right. So we know when things are written in this kind of jargon that it's there to be in the gray area. We know that, which is why a lot of these cops get off. All right. And actually looking into the next part, all right, cops are only applied. Cops only qualify for qualified immunity if if all three of these conditions that I'm going to go over right now are met. All right. So let's start off at the beginning so we can all just start at the same place, because I really just want us to be on the same foot, same page. We all are reviewing the same thing. So once again, cops know exactly what they're doing. All right. So the governmental immunity statute generally provides that a police officer, as an employee of a governmental agency, is immune from tort liability for injuries to persons or property damage caused by the officer while in the course of employment. All right. However, the immunity applies only if all of the conditions are met. All of the following conditions are met, sorry. A. The police officer is acting or reasonably believes he or she is acting within the scope of his or her authority. B. The governmental agency is engaged in the exercise or discharge of a governmental function. And C. The police officer's conduct does not amount to gross negligence. That is the approximate cause of the injury or damage. And we're going to go over what exactly gross negligence means a little in just a minute, because we're going to cover it all. All right. So basically, what this is telling us right now is that all three of these conditions, A, B, and C, must be met in order for a police officer to qualify for qualified immunity. All right, to have those protections of the government, that they can't be sued, essentially, because a member of the government essentially can't be sued because the government can't be sued. Now, I'm just gonna say that A by itself gives plenty of reasons for cops to just be like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know," and then they just get away with everything. All right, they get away with everything because if the police officer is acting or reasonably believes, everybody, we all say common sense ain't common. Everybody has a different level of rationality and reason. All right, so if they reasonably believe he or she is acting within the scope of his or her authority, we already know that there's not a standard for cops or statewide, state to state. So if there's a cop that moved from a different state or even moved different cities, there's not a real standard. So they can reasonably believe that they were acting in the scope of their authority because they might have seen something online or they might have seen something in another state that they were able to do, and they're just following that. And then the judge is like, "Oh well, okay, well you reasonably believe it. Well now you know better." We need to have a common standard nationwide for cops. They need to be having proper psychological testing. They need to have proper background checking. We don't want no Freemasons, no racists, no Pizzagate all up in this business. We don't need none of that. All right, this needs to be an honorable job, and we can't be having this position being infiltrated by people who have racial or whatever kind of biases. It needs to be for everyone, and this is where this is why people are so upset with the police force, because they keep getting away with things, and these laws make it easy for them to get away with it. All right, so moving on to the next part. Now, if all of these conditions are not present, a police officer is not protected by governmental immunity. I already said that. In other words, a police officer may be liable for injuries or damage if the officer was acting outside the scope of employment or the governmental agency was not engaged in a governmental function at the time of the injury occurring event. Also, a police officer may be found liable if the officer's conduct is grossly negligent. We're going to go over once again what gross negligence is in just a second, all right? Because we really need to all be on the same page as this. Now, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, it doesn't look like an off-duty police officer is allowed to really do anything. If somebody gets hurt, somebody gets killed, which is what happened in a few cases, the officer shouldn't be covered, because this literally says the governmental agency was not engaged in a governmental function at the time of the injury or event. Well, if you're not clocked in or clocked out, then if you're not clocked in, then you're not engaged in the governmental function, so you technically can be sued personally. That's just me. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, because I know that for the most part with the military and stuff like that, if you're active duty military, if you hear the colors or whatever, you need to stand at a certain attention. Like, there's no real on or off switch. You got paid to get paid, and that's how it is. So maybe that's how it is with police officers. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comment. Now, once again, I already mentioned this before, but this also says if the officer was acting outside the scope of employment, then they're not covered. This is why we need to have a standard for police officers and a standard for their training, because how are they all going to know? How are they all going to be consistent? They can't be, because they all aren't trained the same way. Once again, there needs to be proper background checks, proper psychological evaluations. There needs to be some sort of criminal law degree. They need to know the law if they are enforcing the law. I don't even know how this makes sense. Like, you see so many YouTube videos of police officers getting checked for not knowing the law, not knowing what's appropriate and what's illegal and what's not, and they are technically breaking the law. They're in violation. They don't qualify for qualified immunity, but all they can say once again is that they didn't know, and then they're no longer liable. There needs to be a better way. There needs to be a better way. Period. Now, looking at the next one. Now we're going to get into gross negligence. The term gross negligence has been defined as conduct so reckless as to demonstrate a substantial lack of concern for whether an injury results. Other than this definition, there is no clear-cut line as to what conduct arises to the level of gross negligence. The court usually takes a case-by-case approach. You know, we already know that the courts and the judges aren't always fair in each situation. There's been people that have blown it out the water where, look what happened to that boy Brock, whatever, that committed, that raped that woman, and his father was like, oh, it wasn't even that big of a deal, like, and then he only gets a few months. Yo, come on now, that boy should still be in jail, in prison. He should still be in prison. But so basically, the term gross negligence has been defined as conduct so reckless it demonstrates a substantial lack of concern. So there are so many officers that are getting caught for shooting people in the back, lack of concern, knee in the neck, lack of concern, beating people in the knees while they're trying to leave, lack of concern, pepper spraying and shooting people with rubber bullets in the face, in the eyes, lack of concern, gross negligence. None of these cops that we're seeing on video at these protests in particular that are abusing and violating people, they don't qualify for qualified immunity. Honestly, it just seems like there should be like some sort of class action lawsuit getting ready to happen, because none of them qualify for qualified immunity. And if these people are on video, it doesn't even matter who the cop is. They all report to the government, sue the whole office. Like, because this is reckless behavior. This is, and I'm gonna go into a little bit more about what we are allowed to do as a people, and what the Constitution and what the laws put in place say that we can do. So looking back even at the first slide I went over, once again, specifically, qualified immunity protects a governmental official from lawsuits alleging that the official violated a plaintiff's rights, only allowing suits where officials violated a clearly established statutory or constitutional right. Okay? Let's get into that now. We're gonna go over some constitutional rights, and constitutional rights are being clearly violated. Once again, these cops don't qualify for qualified immunity. They're not protected, and they are open for lawsuit. We need to remind ourselves what the laws are, cops and people, because cops need to remember that they are opening themselves up for problems, and if they don't want no problems, they better follow the law. Follow justice. Do the job that you were signed up to do. Do the job that you signed up to do. So let's get into some constitutional rights and some laws that were put into place, all right, to protect us. Once again, checks and balances system. When a person being without fault is in a place where he has a right to be, is violently assaulted, he may, without retreating, repel by force. And if, in the reasonable exercise of his right of self-defense, his assailant is killed, he is justified. One may come to the aid of another. One may come to the aid of another being unlawfully arrested, as he may where one is being assaulted, molested, raped, or kidnapped. Thus, it is not an offense to liberate one from the unlawful custody of an officer, even though he may have submitted to such custody without resistance. All right? Constitutional rights, statutory rights being violated. The officer is open for lawsuit. And they don't even realize it. They just think that they can go around doing whatever they want to because somebody, I don't want to say it's the governor, but somebody is allowing them to do it. Somebody's giving them the abilities and the freedoms to do this, to commit crimes and to just get pardoned for being racist. All right? And we need to start holding these people accountable. So getting into the next part. So these principles apply as well to an officer attempting to make an arrest who abuses his authority and transcends the bounds thereof by the use of unnecessary force and violence, as they do to a private individual who unlawfully uses such force and violence. And basically what this is saying right over here, let me read the second part right now. An illegal arrest is an assault and battery. The person so attempted to be restrained of his liberty has the same right to use force in defending himself as he would in repelling any other assault and battery. All right now, you guys. statutory constitutional rights being violated. Officers arresting journalists that are allowed to be there, having the right and the right and the need to report accurate news, having them arrested so that way they can't be reporting and videoing all the illegal activities that these police officers are doing. That's messed up. That's messed up. And you know what? There was a video I saw the other day of a media helicopter that was recording. I'm not sure where it was, but it was showing a bunch of cops that were coming out in uniform in their SWAT gear. They were passing a car, and all of a sudden, and the media officer, the camera was zoomed in on them. And then when the cops started busting up the windows of the car and just breaking in all the windows on both sides, and the other cops were looking at them and just walking by, the media just zoomed out. They didn't even say anything. Isn't their job to report that, being like, why is that cop busting windows at the car? I didn't think that they were supposed to take it that far. Like, hello, somebody. Who gonna say something about that? One may come to the aid of another when they are being illegally detained. Our First Amendment right says that we have the right to peaceably protest, and we are allowed, once again, what it say? When a person being without fault is in a place where he has a right to be, is violently assaulted. And what is a violent assault? An illegal arrest is an assault and battery. An illegal arrest is assault and battery. We are able to fight them if we feel like we are being violated. And just so you guys know, running away from an officer doesn't mean that they are guilty, and it also doesn't give the officer the right to shoot somebody in the back. According to these laws, what those officers are doing violates our statutory and constitutional rights. Because if we feel like our rights are being violated, we have the right to fight, or we have the right to flee. The first thing that the cop is to do is pulling out their gun is not the thing that they should be doing. And we no longer have to be afraid of these cops that are violating our friends, that are pepper spraying our friends, that are beating our friends in front of us. And just because they have a gun doesn't mean that they have the right and the authority to do these kind of things. We gave them the right and the authority to do that. Having the job as a cop is a privilege. Like, you would not stand there and allow a college professor to beat their students up. You would not allow a doctor to beat up their patients. Blue lives matter. Blue lives are jobs. Remember that all jobs matter. All lives matter. Having a job as a cop is just a job. And once again, you wouldn't allow a teacher to beat up their student, and you wouldn't allow a doctor to beat up their patient. So why are you allowing cops to abuse the detainees in front of you? We can help. One may come to the aid of another, and we can hold these cops responsible, because at the end of the day, they are violating rights, and they no longer have the protection of the government, because the government isn't about that life. The government ain't about that thug life. And when they start acting like that and breaking those laws, those people become thugs. I just got we all got a uniform together, because there are so many things that are made to distract all of us, keep us all separated, making us feel this kind of way. But remember, we are all in it together. We're all in it together, and we need to unify and realize that we all have the same goal. We all have the same goal, and that goal is equality, because we all want fairness. We all want fairness, and we all want to maintain our piece of the pie, and we all want to be able to achieve that American dream. All right, we all want to achieve that American dream fairly. All right, because we can all achieve that American dream here, but some of us are definitely having to work a lot harder than others. Some of us have a lot more stacked against us, and we need to eliminate these barriers. And I know that there's a lot of things that the Black community definitely needs to address within our own community. But there's a lot of things that we need to address externally as well. And one of those things is police reform, police brutality, and we need to really all uniform and unify against that. Because right now, all of us are getting violated. All right? So, with that said, thank you, my friends. Thank you, my people. I love you guys. Thank you. Once again, show your support. Like, subscribe, share the content. I love you. One, bless. Elephants out.